Today I'm actually gonna do it. I'm gonna film my autism story video. Let's go! Hey y'all, it's Katie again, but it's been like 2 weeks now. I know you're thinking there's no way it can be 2 weeks because you're wearing the same shirt, but just have to ignore that. I'm sorry, my house is not fancy. We're gonna like scoot over here. I had a really hard time finding somewhere I wanted to film because for this video I don't want it to be like super overstimulating, and I feel like with my toy collection, like over there, I'm like, in my room I have like my doll collection, then I have my bed, then I have like this little sitting area right here, and I feel like this is just like the best calm area. So we're going to be filming this video here, but the wall's like a little banged up over there, so we're not going to be worrying about that. Y'all don't even know about that. So the truth is, after I filmed the first clip of this video, I ended up getting like a horrible sinus infection. I'm still not completely over it. I also have asthma, so whenever my sinuses get messed up, it's like really, really brutal for me, but I am breathing better now, so I'm trying not to cough. I don't want to cough too much in this video, but it will be hard, so if I'm coughing a lot, I apologize about that. I'm trying really hard not to, and also too, this is like my third or fourth attempt of filming this just because I want it to be really good. Like, honestly, this is such an important video for me to make. This is one of the very first videos I ever wanted to make when I started my YouTube channel, and I mean, this is going on 2 years now. It's just about to be 2 years since I'm done YouTube, so I think this video is far overdue, but also it's the perfect time to make it. So, as of my recording this, I haven't met 1,000 subscribers yet, but this is going to be one of my hopefully 2 or 3 video series where I celebrate 1,000 subscribers, because that's truly, truly awesome of you guys. YouTube has been a dream of mine ever since I was 13 years old, and I discovered a really cool YouTuber who, she's just really, really cool. I don't want to talk about that too much now, but she was a toy collector. She was also a different, quirky girl, and also too, later on, she's decided, or she thinks it's possible that she could also be on the autism spectrum. I don't know too much about that, but I saw a post of hers on social media that I believe says that, but I don't know for sure. But I'm just saying, this girl was also different, and she helped me a lot out along the way, and she made me want to do YouTube. And here I am, I'm 21 years old, and I'm about to get to 1,000 subscribers. I mean, it's just really important to me that I do this video justice, because for a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about in today's video, I mean, I think making any type of video at all about it's great, but I really don't want to say something that comes out weird or isn't exactly true, because I don't want, this is an important video to me, and I really want to make sure that the absolute best version of it gets on my YouTube channel. So that's one of the reasons too I've kind of pushed off filming it, is because I want to make sure I do the best job I can. But ultimately, no matter what, I'm always going to look back and I'm going to be like, I should have said this. I should have also said this. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. So I just honestly have to just take a deep breath and film the video. And this is probably going to be a series on my channel. I want to make several videos where I talk about this stuff. So I mean, that does give me some leeway. So for all this time, let's actually dive into it. So when I was like a baby, so when I was like, by the time I was 2 years old, my mother noticed that there were some things that was different about me compared to, like, I would say normal children. So my mom realized about like some sensory difficulties and stuff that was just different about me. I don't know the details of all of this stuff, but my mom talked to my pediatrician about it, and by the time I was 4 years old, they decided to take me in. They took me to a psychologist, and I don't remember much about it, but I remember them doing some testing on me, and of course, as a 4-year-old child, I didn't know this, but at the time, I was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, also known as PDD, NOS. So back now, like, if you are autistic or you are diagnosed autistic, you will just be diagnosed as autism spectrum disorder, and there is the 3 levels of it. But back in my day, I was born in 2003. I'm so old. But anyway, just kidding. So back when I was a little girl, I would have been 4 years old, and I was born in 2003. So I guess this would have been like definitely pre-2013. I don't know exactly what year that would be. I don't want to do math. But anyway, so there was different diagnoses. Like back then, you could be given the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, high functioning autism, Asperger's syndrome, PDD/NOS, which is just a really long name. I believe there's also at least one other one too that was below that, but it was really difficult, a little confusing, but in 2013 they ended up doing away with that system, and now everyone's just given a diagnosis of ASD, autism spectrum disorder, because it is just a spectrum. We won't be talking about if I think the diagnosis system back from when I was little is better or the current one we have now, because honestly, that's a whole topic, and I'm not really sure of my answer on that, and I haven't done as much research on that, but that is one thing that I've always found interesting. But generally speaking, I do definitely, autism is a spectrum. Like, also too, this is something I really need to say. You could be watching my video and you could also be on the autism spectrum, and you might not relate to my journey like at all, or I cannot relate to your journey, or one of us can relate more to one person's journey than the other. Autism is a spectrum, so I might have some problems you don't have, and vice versa. So don't take my words I say here as this is every single autistic person's experience. I mean, when you hear the story of one autistic person, you hear the story of one person with autism. Everyone is completely different. So just because I experience this doesn't mean you will at all or anything similar, but it is the same spectrum. So there will be some stuff similar, but not even necessarily that much. But hey, we could have like everything in common. So, it's a spectrum. So my story is my story and it's not yours, and we will have differences. So I just want you to make sure you know that. I'm glad I said that. I could have forgot. So my mother was told that I was very, very close to testing for Asperger's, and why I did get the diagnosis I got was because they said I just needed to work on my self-help skills, and that's all I would have needed. So right then, self-help skills was the biggest thing that I needed to work on. And at this point, I started getting lots and lots of occupational therapy and speech therapy. At first, it started out more as like language, and then it worked into more of like articulation stuff and speech therapy. But these two therapy services for me were just absolutely like so important. They really helped me with a lot of my skills. I did not get ABA therapy. That's like, there are some people who are for that, some people who are against it. I also won't be getting into my opinions on that because that's a whole topic for another video. But those two services were extremely helpful to me. We worked on like my self-help skills, and we also worked on like things for my sensory issues, problem-solving skills, and lots of things. And I was a little girl. I don't remember too much about these experiences, but I remember that as a kid, I just thought these people were playing with me. Like, I didn't, and I think that's so lovely. But, so they helped me with those skills. And pretty much after this point, everybody was like, of course they can't legally say this because I never was like re-evaluated. They just pretty much were saying like, as we are today, like, autism spectrum more on like the Asperger's side of it, especially after I got my self-help skills that I needed. Thank you to my therapist and my parents who worked very hard with me on that, because it's really hard when you don't have those skills. Like, I'm 21 now and I don't have all of my social skills and stuff, so I can't imagine how hard it is for all these kids. But I made it through, and so will all of y'all. And too, so in 2013, they did away with that diagnosis system of like all the different disorders, and they were all just grouped under autism spectrum disorder. Now, I didn't know this. I actually didn't know that I had any form of special needs or anything until I was 16, despite the fact that I got accommodations a lot in school. But that's a whole story. I'll talk about that in a minute. So pretty much I've always identified as Asperger's syndrome. Because honestly, that's what I believe I have. And just too, like, I sometimes will say like ASD, but as I have realized personally, especially as someone who I think can mask very well, and there are days like I will be upset. Like, I've had days where I will go to work as a 21-year-old and be very upset. I'll have days where like I'll cry. I will like stim and stuff like that. And most people, when I tell them, I will either just say neurodivergent and then I'll talk about my autism. But generally speaking, if it's someone who doesn't seem to be super aware, I will just say Asperger's syndrome, because there are still a lot of people out there who don't think that people with ASD can be normal or do a lot of normal stuff, which is completely wrong, because I'm a big believer in like, yes, unfortunately, when you do have special needs, there's some things you can't overcome, and some people have been able to overcome more than others. But if you have this like negative thing, like only people with Asperger's and high functioning can do this, that's really wrong, because you already put in people's heads that this person given this diagnosis can't do something, and that's not true. Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll continue to break through with all of our treatments and options and everything, and we can help everyone overcome stuff and be able to do more of the things they need and love to do. Enough about this little kid stuff. Let me get into like my finding out that I'm on the autism spectrum and how I take that. So when I was, how old would I have been? So I would have been 12 years old, about to turn 13, was when I met the first ever person who was on the spectrum I met who told me they were on the spectrum. I was friends with a few other people at the time who were on the autism spectrum, but they never told me they were, and they weren't people who I was like super close with. But when I was in the 7th grade, I met a boy, and me and him became very good friends. I won't say best friends, but he was definitely like one of my top 2 best friends at the time. And I won't use his name just out of like respect out of him, because I don't know if he would like that or not. And unfortunately, I don't have contact with him anymore, which is really sad. But you know who you are if you're watching this. Contact me. Not through my doll account. You know my personal Instagram. Contact me. But anyway, so me and this guy, we became friends. And I think I realized that there was some stuff a little different about him, but it was nothing I would necessarily ever like notice too much. But I realized he was a bit different. And after we talked for like the first 2 days, I remember that he actually ended up telling our class that he was on the autism spectrum. I don't remember how it came up, but I think somebody said or told him to do something, and I don't know what it was, but there was like some reason, and he wanted to tell our class that he was on the autism spectrum. And I was like, okay, what's the autism spectrum? And I remember that he told me a little bit about it, but I don't think I really understood it too much until I asked my mom about it. And my mom just told me like what the autism spectrum was. And I was like, okay, so me and this boy, we were like absolute best friends when I was in 7th grade. And we talked like every single day. We ate lunch together and all of that stuff. And I remember that like, I felt like me and him understood each other to a deeper level. We were never a couple. We just were really, really good friends. And I remember that after being friends with him for a while, I was like, I think I have the same thing you have, but not quite to the degree you have. I think it's not quite as hard for me as some stuff is for you. But we also experience like a lot of the same stuffs in like a good way too. Like we have this energy about us, you know. And I remember that I never told him about this, but I remember that I asked my mom about it. And I remember that my mom, I think I said something like, hey, do I have what my friend's name has, but just not as bad or not as much? I remember that my mom was like, no, you don't. And my mom knew I had this, but she didn't want to tell me until I was a little bit older because she didn't know how that would affect me. And I remember that I still deeply felt that I was on the autism spectrum. I mean, I knew hardly nothing about it other than just that was what my friend had. And I kind of just accepted that for a while, and I didn't question it again until after a really bad experience I had. Sorry, I had to take a coughing break. So when I was like 14 to 15 years old, I started to have a really, really hard time with my mental health. And I was not officially diagnosed, but I went to a therapist when I was 14 years old, and she said that I had intrusive thought OCD. And I'm not gonna lie, that was one of the hardest experiences of my life, was like beating the OCD, I guess you would say, or learning how to function with it. Sorry, it's just really hard to talk when it's a little difficult to breathe, but I'm doing my best here. I'm going to push through for y'all because I really want to tell the story. So also too, this is going to get onto like my religious views, because I can't separate this story, like both of these stories with my autism and my OCD without it. So I am a Christian, and I would really appreciate, ask that you continue watching this even if you aren't, because I'd really love for you to hear my story. But if you aren't comfortable listening to people talk about their religious views, feel free to click off my video. You don't have to, but I would really love it if you would stay, because I do really want you to hear my story. I want everyone to hear this story. So I started having a really hard time with intrusive thoughts, and I particularly all the time to a certain point when I was in 8th grade felt like no matter what I was doing, even if it was something just normal, nice, fine, even good, I felt like everything I was doing was wrong. It made me feel guilty, and I felt like I was constantly like sinning or like doing something to like mess up my life and other people's lives. And this feeling started out like just a little bit, and it just grew and grew and grew to the point that when I was in 9th grade, I didn't have a life, because no matter what I loved, my intrusive thoughts would convince me that it was bad. So I would just, honestly, it's so sad to talk about, but I would just sit and cry a lot, and it was horrible. And at that point in my life, this is crazy for me to think about now, I didn't even really know what mental illness was. I never even really grew up hearing about that, so I didn't really understand what was going on with me. And around this time too, I also realized, like, kind of different than other people, and teachers give me things like extra time on tests and stuff. I went to Christian school too, so this is a little bit better. And also too, it explains some. And I also talked to some of my teachers about this stuff, and many of them were very helpful and like super kind, but like to an extent they were like, you can't think everything you do is wrong. Like, stop worrying. But it was like, it wasn't regular anxiety. It was something in my mind telling me, excuse me, telling me that like everything I was doing was like evil and wrong and scary and sinful. And it really ruined my life. And a lot of people, especially some teachers and my mother, but my mother especially, and my teachers too, but especially my mom, just went above and beyond to help me, because this was the darkest time in my life. It was so scary. And I just had to completely like have my eyes and my heart like on God, trusting Him, because sometimes, I'm gonna be honest with y'all for a minute, it's a bit of a hard subject, trigger warning for y'all. I honestly am still kind of shocked I survived that whole thing, because it was just so very scary. But I made it through, and I learned that I have intrusive thought OCD, and what goes on for me is that these intrusive thoughts get in my head of like ridiculous stuff. Like, now they're not like that, but like back then it was just that like literally everything I thought was wrong, like collecting dolls, dressing my doll like this, doing this, jumping on the trampoline, like everything. It was horrible, but I made it through, but it was so hard. So sorry, I got sidetracked. So what it is that I have these intrusive thoughts, but part of what these intrusive thoughts do is they try to make me think that they aren't intrusive thoughts, and that I think these are just regular thoughts that have common sense in them, and it makes me feel guilty and stuff, so it's hard to, but it was very difficult. But through the help of my therapist and my mom and some supportive teachers and stuff of mine, I was able to conquer, or at least greatly improve, my experience with these intrusive thoughts. And soon I was able to go out and do the things I love again. And I hope y'all don't think, there's nothing wrong or weird about having a mental illness, because when we get rid of the stigma and we share our stories, it really helps. So I'm telling y'all, whatever you're going through with your mental health or anything, there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. Trust God, especially, because, and sometimes it's so hard to think, like, why do I have to go through this? But I promise you, there's a reason for it. Whether you know it now or not, or whether you never understand it, there's a reason for it. And you just have to use it to make you stronger. And I know it's hard, and I really know it's hard, but that's what I did, and it really helped me. And look at me now. I'm over here living honestly, the dream life I wanted for myself after such a horrible time for over a year. So there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Work hard to get the help you need. If people don't understand you, keep trying to make them understand you, and trust God, because it's all going to work out in the end, and it's going to be okay. So one time when I went to the doctor, I believe this was for like my 15-year-old checkup, my mom and my pediatrician were talking about my OCD and how that I struggled a lot with black and white thinking. And I remember that my pediatrician specifically said, and yeah, that's going to be so difficult for a lot of the Asperger's. And I remember that I heard that word and I was like, Asperger's? I think I've heard that before, but I don't know what it means. So I remember that, not specifically that day, but I went home and I looked that up, and I was like, Asperger's, that's part of the autism spectrum, and it means that you're on the autism spectrum, but just like I was talking about with my friend, and I looked into it and I was like, well, my doctor said I have that, or supposedly she thinks I have it, but my mom didn't say I had it. So I was that happened, So for the next little while, I looked into Asperger's syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, high functioning autism, and all of that. And I remember that I hit this community so hard called the Autism Community on YouTube. And those people helped me out tremendously. So many just amazing, wonderful people who helped me out so much. I mean, I never commented on any of these videos or anything, but these people made videos where they shared their stories of like their special needs and what they've done to cope with things, to overcome stuff, the ways they use accommodations to help themselves, and just so much stuff. And I remember thinking that these people, these people on YouTube with any form of like autism spectrum disorder who have like overcome this stuff, and they're, you know, using this to help other people, inspire them, and also share with them how they can do the same things to help themselves. I thought these people were the coolest people I'd ever heard of. Now, I never told my mom that I was watching any of this stuff. No one knew about this, not my mom, not my therapist, or anyone, but I continued watching these videos, and these people, so many of them are so very cool, and I still watch some of them to this day. Some of them don't make videos anymore, but I actually learned how to deal with some of the issues I was facing from them. And I remember, too, just thinking, like, boy, wouldn't it be cool if I could talk to my mom about this stuff, and she could tell me how to work through this stuff and everything. But I was like, well, after watching this stuff and learning, like, what ASD was, specifically more of the Asperger's, because I always feel like I felt more into, like, because autism spectrum disorder, and like one of the reasons too, from my understanding, I'm not an expert, and I believe this is true pretty strongly, but I don't want to say for sure because I'm not an expert. I don't know everything, but honestly, nobody knows anything. Wait, no, nobody knows everything. A lot of us know some stuff, but nobody knows everything. I've always felt like, so like, you know, like the different little, all the stuff that went into autism spectrum disorder, like high functioning, Asperger's, all of that. I always felt like a lot of the stuff I struggled with was more specifically what a lot of the people given the Asperger's diagnosis struggled with, because especially since I worked on my self-help skills, I'm pretty sure if that was still a thing and I was to get re-diagnosed when I was a kid, or probably even now, I would probably go like in the Asperger's category, but I don't know, and honestly, they don't do that anymore, and I'm completely cool with that. You know, I do think it can cause some problems, but I also think it's honestly probably for the mostly better good, because there are some disgusting people out there, and they will, like, they'll judge you based on, like, if you're Asperger's, you're high functioning, and you can run into, like, some ableism and stuff like that, and ultimately, we're all on the same spectrum, just some people struggle more than others, and just because I have Asperger's doesn't mean that I might have, like, horrible, severe sensory issues that aren't as bad as someone who's not quite as high functioning as me. Like, we shouldn't, when you have, like, Asperger's, high functioning, all of that, you more specifically think people with this struggle with this, or people with this disorder struggle more with this thing than other people do, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. But I was just like, why does my mom say I don't have this? I asked her about it. Why does she lie to me about this? So that hurt me, you know, but I just continued to watch these incredible people, and I learned so much about this stuff, and I felt very uplifted. Like, it's perfectly okay to be like this. Look at these incredible people. They went through this, and this, and look at them. Now they're on YouTube helping other people, and I saw that so many of them, several of them also had very, like, quirky, nerdy hobbies. Like, there was a guy I watched, and he also collected toys. Like, okay, so I'm sure by seeing the start of this video, you definitely know I'm a doll collector, but I'm a toy collector. I've been toy collecting specifically toys since I was like 8, 9 years old. 9 years old, I started with G1, My Little Ponies. Also a Build-A-Bear fan, love so many different kinds of dolls. There's one specific doll I'll show towards the end of this video that actually ties in with this. But I thought these people were so cool, and I was like, I'm like them. I belong. They can help me. I can help them. I was just so happy by this, you know, and like, this, to me, this was a positive experience. I went from being, and also to, like, when I was in school, I got a lot of accommodation with my school stuff, so I went to a Christian school, absolutely loved it, but, you know, at private school, you don't have, like, IEPs, so it's kind of difficult, and I do definitely think some stuff would have been easier for me if I would have went to public school, but what's done is done, and ultimately everything happens for a reason. I was no longer like this kid who just like got all this weird help on my work that people had to explain stuff to, and I cried a lot, and I had to always ask people to explain stuff to me. Like, up until I was in like high school, if a teacher was going to like deliver a message to the class, she would have to take me out and get like a parapro or somebody with me who would like explain it to me, and then she would explain it to the whole class, because if they tried to do it the other way, like explain it to the whole class, then explain to me later, I would get upset. It was just, I had a lot of problems growing up, and I think, unfortunately, and I don't know exactly what it was, if, like, a lot of the kids I went to school with weren't aware of, like, kids with special needs, like, kids with problems, or I don't know if it was more of, like, I'm a girl, because I do know that they say that sometimes, especially more back, maybe a little before my time, but my time, too, it was harder for girls to get help. So maybe they never seen a girl like me before, you know, but kids would, like, ask stuff they shouldn't, like, why does she get help and we don't? Why can't you just stop crying? And boy, this was Christian school too. That's okay. They didn't know, and I forgive them, even though it wasn't cool. But anyways, where's I going with that? I was like, so why did my mom not want me to know about this stuff? So I remember that I didn't ask her, and so also, growing up, I showed animals, I showed livestock for 4-H. It was absolutely lovely. It was so much fun, and I did pretty well in some state competitions. It was very, very cool. I worked very hard, and I'm very proud of that. I'm a country girl. I probably should have said that a little bit earlier in the video, but I got to go to the nationals for my 10th grade year of showing, and it was so much fun. One of the best experiences I've ever had, traveling out of state, going out of Georgia for the nationals for livestock showing, and it was an absolute blast. I did get some ribbons with numbers on them. Not just participation. Although, trust me, if you go to the nationals at all, that's something to be proud of. But I did get ribbons with numbers on them for, like, I think 3 of the 5 times I showed while I was down there, which I think is very impressive. But while I was there, it came up, and I asked my mom, what specifically did I ask her? I asked her something along the lines, so my mom said something about, like, talking about me and my brother being spoiled, because, you know, when there's not many kids in your family, my mom's brother didn't have kids, and me and my brother are, like, the only kids. We're older than our cousins, but, like, me and my brother for a long while were, like, the only kids in our family, so we got a lot of special treatment, lots of spoiling growing up, which I'm very thankful for. But my mom said something about, like, us being spoiled, and that's one of the reasons I'm the way that I am, meaning, like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but something about, like, I spilt something on, like, my blue jeans, so I had to, like, go change really quick, because that would look, like, terrible in showmanship, you know, so we were, like, I had to go, like, change really quick, and it was, like, really stressful, and I remember that, and this makes me sad to think about, because I kind of wish I wouldn't said it like this, because I felt like it kind of made my mom feel bad, but I mean, what else was I supposed to do? I say, is that why I have a harder time with stuff? I remember that my mom paused, and she didn't say anything for a few minutes. So how this was it was like, my pop was driving the truck, and then my mom was sitting in the passenger seat, then I was behind them, but my pop, we were at, like, the hotel, so my pop went out to, like, I guess do something. I don't know what he was doing, but this was, like, our second night down there. I remember that my mom was like, no, and I said, well, why do I have a harder time with stuff? And she said, honestly, you were probably like that when you were born. I remember that I really wanted to ask, I really wanted to know more, but my pop came back, and I was like, well, I'll ask about that when we get home. I show more, and everything goes great, and then, like, 2 or 3 days later, we head home. It was an absolute wonderful time. Very glad I got to go there, and not, like, the night that we got home, because we got home at, like, 3 in the morning, but, like, the very next night. Remember, me and my brother were supposed to spend the night with my grandma, but that didn't end up happening that night instead, because I was talking to my mom about this. But I remember that my mom, like, came in my room, and I was like, I think what happened was I said, what's Asperger's? And I remember that was when, like, she sat down and she told me about everything. She said that, I don't know if she, like, specifically started by explaining, like, about, like, the autism spectrum, but she told me about, like, when I was little, and they got testing done on me, and I remember that I just asked her about some stuff, and I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I remember that, like, one of the specific questions that I had for my mom was, am I autistic? And my mom, of course, wasn't aware of the experience I had, and my opinion on it, which is just, some people are autistic. It just means that, generally speaking, you have, a harder time with some stuff, and that's okay. You can, especially because, like I said, most of the people I know who are on the autism spectrum or around, back in my day, us would be diagnosed with, like, Asperger's syndrome or high-functioning autism. I have several friends like that, and that was always kind of like what I thought of when I heard of, like, people on the autism spectrum. So that was what I was immediately thinking about into the amazing people I saw on YouTube. But my mom thought that, like, more severe forms of, like, autism came to my mind, or more the ideas of that, like, if she told me I was autistic, I would think that that meant that I couldn't do a lot of things I've done, like show livestock at the nationals, graduate high school with almost honors, but I didn't because of a really dumb reason, and, like, go to college, live my dreams, and all that stuff. And she said, you're on the autism spectrum, but just a little bit. And she meant that in the type of way of, like, you have Asperger's or somewhere around there, but I thought that she was honestly just saying to me, like, you're just a little bit. And that was why she didn't tell me I was. So we like talked about that later and she explained it to me. But I remember that what really hurt me was that, like, to me, I was expecting this to be like my moment where I was like, this is why I'm the way that I am, and I can take this, and my mom, she can help me, and I can use this to overcome this, and I can do all of this stuff. But to her, she was really scared that this was going to be some moment that would make me think that I wasn't like everyone else, and I couldn't do everything everyone else could. But that wasn't what it was to me. And honestly, she just kind of came in it with this, like, I wouldn't say negative, but like this mindset that wasn't exactly what I needed. And I think talking about that stuff helped, but honestly, it wasn't exactly what I was getting at. But luckily, I was still able to pull through and become the person I am and to formulate the opinions I do have. So I watched a lot more of these amazing kick-butt autistic YouTubers who are just out there changing the world, helping so many people, just honestly being superheroes, because that's what they were to me. And I also talked to my mom more and more about this stuff, and I understood about, like, how I got there, what all of this stuff meant, the challenges I had growing up, and how some really, really awesome occupational therapists and speech therapists and pediatricians, my pediatrician referred me to a lot of stuff, she's really awesome, but how all of these people really helped me out and everything, and how I got to be the person I was at that time, back when I was 16, and at that time as well, what I could do to become the best version of myself I could be. And I really just listened to these YouTubers and what they thought. I was reading articles, just really focusing on positive ways you can cope with being on the autism spectrum. And I mean, if you ask me, because I mean, for real, sometimes, having special needs, I mean, generally speaking, if something's harder for you, it's gonna suck. I mean, when I was little, one of the biggest things for me when I was little, like, when I was little, it was mostly sensory. I mean, communication too, but like, honestly, up until now, I still don't have the best, like, social skills, communication skills. Like, it's really not fun, because, like, imagine being 21 years old and you need to tell someone something, even like your dad, like, he doesn't understand something. If it's really hard to, like, just communicate what you need and honestly even, like, decipher what he's saying and, like, how I can use that to, like, solve my problem. That's really hard. Like I'm saying, that sucks. It really does. And there's no way around that. And it's okay to say it sucks. But also, too, I'm a big believer that in most experiences and most stuff you have going on, you can use that for positive to make yourself stronger. And ultimately, no matter what, I believe everything we go through is God's will, and it all happens for a reason, for the greater good, whether that be necessarily something that I experience or not. But God's watching out for us. Everything happens for a reason, and yeah. But He's taking care of us, and everything will work out for the greater good. And He wants the best for us. And my entire life, I didn't know that people could have, like, literally anything wrong with them. Like, I knew that people could, like, get hurt and develop, like, a disability or, like, a life-altering or life-changing injury some point in their life, but I didn't know, honestly, up until I was 10 years old, that somebody could be born with a difference. So, I guess as soon as I was old enough to understand that, or started to understand that, I'm gonna say, like, I found out about that when I was 10 years old, but there's this opinion of mine that, like, specifically for me, but this is for a lot of other people too, but I don't know your specific story, so I don't want to say, like, this definitely applies to you, but I think this applies to a lot of people, and I'll explain more when I actually say this. So, I believe that 100% God made me perfectly just the way He wants to make me, and by perfectly, I mean, we live in a fallen world, and that's honestly, the fact that we live in an unperfect world is why anything sucks. Why we live in an imperfect world is just because, oh my goodness, I can't speak, but I don't want to cut anything else out because I'm not coughing right now. Why sometimes stuff sucks is because we live in an imperfect world, and that's why I have the challenges I have, and stuff's harder for me, and all of that, but who I am and everything is absolutely perfect, and you see, part of who I am is this experience I've had my entire life, including a lot of, too, what it's like to grow up with special needs, because I'm telling you, that's going to change a lot. Like, if you are like me growing up and you have such a hard time with communication, you have a hard time with sensory issues, you were always the kid who was getting all this extra help and everybody else was jealous because they didn't understand, and all of this stuff too. I mean, you're generally speaking gonna get bullied. Like, I was at a Christian school, so thankfully no one ever, like, hit me or anything. I'm gonna go and say, any kind of bullying is just terrible. If you can, stop bullying, and if you're being bullied, please do what you can do to stay safe, mentally and physically, and get help, because it's terrible. And if you're watching this and you're a bully, you better stop. But anyway, so people would say mean stuff to me. Excuse me, would say mean stuff to me growing up. And although I think as a kid, because I cried a lot, I feel like I kind of probably thought I was weak, but I don't think that. I think I was very strong, and I've always been, and I think it's partially because of the experience I had growing up, a very caring person. Like, I would be friends with, and I still am, like, I'll be friends with anyone, no matter, like, who you are, if you're different, if you're not different, if you're going through a hard time, if you're having the best day of your life, if you've regretted stuff you did in your past and you're trying to change. Like, I don't judge, and at least I try my best not to judge. So that's one thing that I really think my experience of being on the autism spectrum taught me. And, like, too, that guy I was talking about I was friends with, at that time especially, some people wouldn't want to talk to him even. It would make fun of him for being different, but I didn't care. I just saw him as like anyone else, and I wanted to be his best friend. There's so much about me and my personality that I think through my hard times was able to help me become. And also too, I believe, because like if you compare a lot of people on the autism spectrum, there's a lot of good things that we all have in common. Like, I mean, it's a spectrum, so not everybody's going to have this, but amongst a lot of the people on the autism spectrum I know, we have a lot of really cool, awesome things in common. And I mean, I think, honestly, my opinion is that, like, some of this stuff probably is just part of being autistic. Like, I mean, a lot of us are into our amazing nerdy hobbies, and we have special interests, which I think special interests are, like, the coolest thing in the world. You already know some of mine. And also, too, I'm a big believer in that your special interests can help you so much in so many ways. But there's a lot of positive stuff about it, honestly, whether that be positive stuff coming from negative stuff, because you got to do it. You got to turn your hardships into things that you can use to help yourself, or at least things that aren't negative anymore. And there's a lot of ways you can help other people with it too. I actually look it up, and there's like several, I mean, I just like regularly Googled it, and there's several things that come up about like positive aspects of being on the autism spectrum. And not all of these things will apply to everyone. Some of the like things that came up did apply to me, some of them didn't, and some of them will apply to you, and some of them probably won't. So there are positive things that come along with it, whether those be positive things about it. Like, for instance, just one example is that for many people on the autism spectrum, we have special interests. Like, one of mine is dolls, which is one of the reasons why I have one of my smart dolls here with me today. But so, like, say for me, let's say I get really, like, I'm absolutely obsessed with dolls. I'm very interested in them. I can use that to help myself in many ways. I can hyper-focus on that. Let's say I'm a YouTuber, because I am a doll collecting YouTuber. That I could use to help me on my YouTube channel. I could research. There's a lot of things I can do to help myself with that. And hey, I mean, you might want to be an entrepreneur, and you might make your own doll company or something because of that. And I know that there's many people on the spectrum, and their special interests will be like math and science. I don't think that's quite as common. Like the whole like super genius whole thing, that's taken a lot of proportion. Most of us are not machines, but some of us are, you know, and if you are, that's perfectly okay to love that. There's many positive things that can come along with being autistic that's perfectly awesome to love. There's many for me, like, I don't know, because I don't know what it would be like if I wasn't on the spectrum, but I don't think I would be the person I am today, especially not because of the person I think it turned me into, all of the stuff I went through, and both, again, in a bad way, you know, but also too, I mean, there's a lot of things that a lot of us have in common. Like, I think it's quite possible I wouldn't be quite as, like, geeky and nerdy and, you know, really compassionate and, like, have such a stride to, like, making the world a better place without being autistic, too. I think that more of just comes as, like, just part of being autistic. Maybe not as much as the journey, but, I mean, hey, it could be. Probably more of the journey when it comes to making the world a better place, but we never know. But those are just some positive aspects of it, because for me, I really think that, and I've talked about this before, but no matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening in your life, you've got to find, if you can, try really hard, try to find positive things about it, and if you can't, use it to make you stronger, because, I mean, why wouldn't you? We all want to, you know, live a happy life and do what we can to make the world a better place. For me personally, I think all of the wonderful things I love about myself, like all of the great way that I see the world, the way I care for people, the way have all of my special interests and all the things I love. I think God made me like that, and He loves that stuff about me. But all of the suffering I have to do and all the stuff that's harder for me, that's just because we live in a world that's fallen because of sin, because we all sin. And I think one day when I'm in heaven, I'll still be me, the weird little girl I am, but I won't have any of the hard stuff anymore. And that's the whole thing about, like, to what extent, like, the question I've heard people talk about is, does God make autistic people autistic? And this, I think, truly just comes from what you're specifically referring to, because, like, if you're saying, like, some of these stuff that go along with it, like strong attention to detail, special interest, if it's good and positive, I think He gives that to you. But if it's the more negative stuff, He doesn't give it to you. He allows you to have it because we live in a fallen world, and it's all for a reason. So I think all of that good stuff will have, but I mean, that's a whole complicated question. But I know that the Lord made me just the way I am, and He loves me just the way I am, just like He loves all of y'all just the way you are. I mean, you gotta stop sinning if that's kind of where you're getting at. I'm not saying that, like, sinful things or, like, sins you're committing or, like, okay, nothing like that. Some people take that a little bit differently, but just who you are, He made you just the way you are. Everything about you, He allowed to happen for a reason, or He made happen for a reason. And I can never explain that perfect. I'm just human. Maybe I can get into that farther on, but I think most of y'all can get what I'm saying with this. If you're worried, like, I'm weird, there's something wrong with me, God made you just the way you are, and He made you that way for a purpose, for a reason. And if you're struggling with stuff, use it in a way that you can help people, you can make yourself a better person, just ultimately, you can use it to serve the Lord, because I believe in, like, literally everything. We can use everything to make the world better and serve the Lord, and that's what I'm doing, and that's why I wanted to make this YouTube video, and just share this so I'll be one of those cool autistic people online who tells her story. Almost to the end of my video. There's just 2 more things I want to talk about. My absolute, like, biggest or main special interest for a very long time now has been making the world a better place, and I think I want to do so through occupational therapy. So I'm a college student. I just got my associates, and I'm in my 3rd year of college. I just finished my 1st semester. So I decided I wanted to be an occupational therapist after my 1st semester of college. I first went in for education, but I knew that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. But when I rediscovered occupational therapy from reading about careers that help people with special needs, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So many careers that help people with special needs, and honestly, like, many services like speech-language pathology too, help people at any stage in their life just overcome things that are difficult for them and really regain the best quality of life they can and do the things they love. So many are so important, but for me personally, I think occupational therapy was the most important, and I'm going to tell you, there were several things I thought about. Like, I thought about ABA therapy, I thought about speech-language pathology, especially speech-language pathology, but I decided to go with OT, and I'm very glad I did. With occupational therapy, I hope I can help people overcome their challenges, whether that be challenges they're facing as a very small kid, or challenges they're facing at, like, 90, 100, or even older than that. I want to help them overcome them through occupations, and occupations are so many things. They're not just jobs. That's one thing that occupational therapists get wrong about them. Occupations are truly anything that you want to do or need to do for yourself, like taking care of yourself, hobbies, like doll collecting, doing your job, and just truly living your life and doing the things you need and want to do. I mean, what is more rewarding than letting people do the things they need and want to do? And for me, the things I want to do are so rewarding, like my hobbies and everything, and helping people is just something I've always wanted to do. And right now, I'm leaning towards pediatrics, but honestly, so many fields of occupational therapy are so fascinating to me, and they're all so very important. I've done a good bit of shadowing in the hospital setting, and I'm thinking about that, but really my heart is with, like, helping people with special needs, but it doesn't even necessarily have to be kids. Something I'm very fascinated with, although I don't know if there's going to be many job opportunities for it, is helping people of all ages with special needs. So, like, maybe people who are, like, young adults. That's something I'm really interested in, but there's not too many job opportunities that I've heard about now. And I know that in Georgia, which is where I live, OT is growing. Like, it's growing. They project it's going to grow, I think, like 11% over the next the next while. I don't know exactly when it is anyway. I don't know where I got that statistic from. Just an occupational therapist told that to me. But occupational therapy is just so very, very important. And I think as someone who got occupational therapy as a child, and also too, I mean, someone who as a kid had a lot of issues, but through hard work, my parents, especially my mom, who worked her butt off to just get me as much help as I can and look into getting me the best occupational therapist, speech therapist, and just services in general. As someone who's been able to overcome and, despite my hardships, push through and get the life I want, I think that says a lot about who I could be as an occupational therapist and why it's so important to me, because I've experienced this stuff firsthand, and I know how wonderful it is to overcome stuff that's hard, but also how unfortunate it can be to struggle because of things that are out of your control. And I think the experience I have in being autistic definitely will help me be a better occupational therapist and honestly a better person, because when you experience, I mean, all of our experiences, they prepare us for the world, who we're going to be, and everything. But I definitely think the experience I have is going to, it already has, helped me become the best version of myself I can be. I'm not the best version of myself I can be, no. It's just helping me become a better and better version of myself. Also too, so this is one of my Smart Dolls. I collect lots of different dolls, but Smart Doll is probably my favorite brand that I collect. These dolls, if you're on my doll collecting channel, you've probably heard of these, but if you're not, you're probably finding out about these dolls for the first time. I'll tell you, they are more expensive dolls, and they are made by Danny Cho. You can find out about them on the Smart Doll website. You can just look up like Smart Doll store or Smart Doll website or something. I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but I'm not affiliated or associated with him or anything. I'm not with anyone. I just run my channel completely for fun because I love it. But this doll right here, sorry, you can see my chargers in the background. This doll is Limitless, and her story has to do with being neurodivergent, and you can look it up. I would say go to the Smart Doll website and just look up like Smart Doll Limitless, and she's very, very special to me. I came up with a character for her like I do for many, many of my dolls. If you're new here and you're interested in toy collecting or doll collecting, or just people who collect things and just individuals, little quirky individuals who want to make the world a better place, please consider subscribing. And these dolls are amazing, so if you want to learn more about them, I definitely recommend them. But she's super cool, and I thought she was perfect for this video. That's about it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, at least for now, because I know that this video was not perfect. There's so many things I wish I could say, and so many mistakes I made I wish I could go back and fix, but I can't. And I'm hoping that I can definitely make this a series or something on my channel now. It was a lot of fun to make, and this was truly a video I've wanted to make for 2 years, so I'm so happy I finally did. And if you're still here, thank you so much for watching this. I'm trying to be the best YouTuber I can be, but it's hard, especially when you got a lot of congestion going on. But I'd really appreciate it if you would watch more videos like this I hope to make in the future. Also, if you like doll collecting or toy collecting in general, I can hook you up. Subscribe to my channel, because I mostly make videos about that, but I am wanting to make more videos about this stuff too. But before I go, I want to tell y'all thank you so much for watching. No matter what's going on in your life, keep pushing, keep fighting forward, and don't just make the world better for you, but fight to make the world better for everyone. And always remember to be the best version of yourself you can be. Stay kind and have a blessed day.